Welcome to the Around the Block podcast presented by PrepVolleyball.com. We're your hosts, Jimmy Pompeo and Sam Heyman, here to give you the inside scoop on all things prep. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Around the Block, episode 2. Today we're talking about the process because it's award season, which means it's time for the top 150, the top 100, club All-Americans, recruiting class rankings, and more. But before we do that, we do have something important that we want to talk about. We got word last week that John Tawa, the founder of our website and former head writer, is officially retiring from volleyball writing. We just wanted to say thank you for everything you've done for the sport. And thank you for creating an opportunity for us to continue your work at Prep Volleyball. And we wish you a fulfilling retirement and all the best. All right, let's get into it. Before we do anything else, we didn't do something last week that's probably important to the process, which is introduce ourselves. I am head writer Jimmy Pompeo. I want to give you a little bit of background about myself and what qualifies me to do this job. I started playing volleyball at 14. Coincidentally enough, with Sam Heyman. We went to the same high school and played together. I've coached Division III men's, Division III women's, Division II women's, and I've coached club, high school, and I started my own club up in Albany, New York, which is still going strong. Hi, Sporting Albany. Sam?
Well, I got into the game a little bit after you did. I came into the process at 100 Central our sophomore year, after my brother had been playing on the freshman team, and I kind of got into the mix a little bit late. Played club at Warren Six Pack in New Jersey. I'm not sure if they're still Warren Six Pack or if they're just Six Pack now.
Just Six Pack now.
Think they might be. Made my way up to St. Francis University in Loretto, Pennsylvania. And I was able to crack my way onto the roster with Coach Mike Rumbaugh and Henry Schwang, who were more than generous in giving me an opportunity to develop my skills and grow in the game. And then I transferred to Kane University to finish out my playing career, where, once again, reconnected with my boy. And
Go Cougs!
Go Cougs! And we helped to kickstart the program's first season, which was challenging. If anybody's ever tried to start a program, you know what it's like. And then we were able to flip things around the next year, go to the first ever Division III national championship tournament for the men's side of the ball, which was awesome. And I haven't checked. I think I may still have a share of some single match records at the school. I'm not sure. I might. I don't know. It's been a while.
I think you're definitely still top 3 for single match records at Kane. Plus, we were members of the inaugural NCAA tournament for Division.
Founding fathers, baby. Not too bad. As far as the coaching goes, I started coaching in 2010, actually, still during school. Started out at Central Jersey Volleyball Academy, coaching club, doing summer camps and lessons and coaching national level teams that they had there. And then I began my college coaching at Kane, back at Kane in the spring of 2015, coaching the men's program there, which was pretty cool. The guys that were there as seniors were freshmen when I was graduating, so that was a really cool experience. And that team was ranked #1 in the country by the AVCA for a little while, which was really sweet. And then I made my way up to Lafayette College in the summer of 2015. Coached Division I women's there for 3 seasons. Made my way up to Hamilton College, Division III up in the NESCAC, which was a really cool experience. I also got to participate with Colgate University and Syracuse University as well while I was up there. And then the summer of 2021, I made my way to Prep Volleyball. So that's been the path, as it were.
Yeah, I mean, between the two of us, we check all the boxes.
A box or two.
So let's get into it. What is award season? Well, it's that special time of the year where we release a mass amount of awards because it's the end of club season. Most recently, we started kicking out the top 150 class rankings, as well as the club All-Americans and the top 100. So who picks our awards? Who decides the rankings?
It's us.
Just us. We don't have a
the players
committee.
and the players.
Yeah. I mean, their performance is what defines their spot on what list. We don't have a committee. We don't really take recommendations. There's no parent, no coach, no director input. We do accept nominations for some awards like Club All-Americans, but nominations are just that. We make the actual selections. And on that note, we do need to address something that has been bubbling up lately. So listen very carefully because this is extremely important. We don't take bribes. I don't even know why I have to say it, but apparently there's been rumors going around that we are just flush with cash because people have been bribing us to put their kids on our lists, which I've never seen that money. I don't know about you.
Must be those other prep volleyball guys.
Must be.
I don't
It's
know.
Probably,
they must be more handsome than us too.
Unless there's just two people out there pretending to be us and scamming people, we have not seen a dollar. We don't play favorites. We don't prioritize clubs that subscribe to our website. In fact, we don't even know who subscribes to our website because most of that information is private, so we don't really have access to that. But I will say that it's understandable when people get upset when their kid's name isn't in the rankings or their team isn't where they think they should be, but nobody likes a gossip. Like, we don't appreciate the rumors that have been spread about us. It's kind of sad that we have to actually address it. It's an ugly look, no matter who it is, a parent, a player, a coach, a director. Like, we do this to help the sport. We don't do this for ourselves. We don't go out there and say, hey, guess who I am? Guess what I do? Blah, 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 blah. Like, we do what we do because we love the sport and we want to give back. We want to help kids grow and we want to help the sport grow. And when people, want to go out there and besmirch our good name, it's not really going to negatively impact us because what we do is true to who we are, and we work extremely hard at what we do. And there's a lot of competition out there that does the same thing. And while we compete with them, we also respect them because they work just as hard as we do. Maybe they haven't been doing it as long as we've been around, but they also are, receiving the same kind of issues. And I just think it needs to stop. Like, I can understand if you're upset, your kid didn't make a list or they're not as high as they should be ranked, but it's not up to you. So
it creates opportunities for conversation, but moreover, I'd like to just touch on one thing, and this is junior sports. We're still talking about children at the end of the day. These are not professional athletes yet. Some of these student athletes have the opportunity for name, image, likeness opportunities, but their performance is what's dictating the results that they get on the back end of things, not what some talking heads say. And we do need to get back a little bit to allowing these kids to be kids. The conversations that we're able to generate, the attention that we're able to bring to the game, and promote it and promote some of the best players within the sport. Lovely, wonderful. We enjoy doing that. It's a part of service back to the game. The reality TV type conversations that happen on message boards at tournaments, it's not healthy for the sport, guys. It's really not. We need to be a little bit better as a community. And from our side, we would appreciate that for sure.
Oh, absolutely. And, there's the forums are just toxic. Like, there's people that will say things about us, about our website, criticize our rankings that have never touched a volleyball, never had a kid that played volleyball. It's just an odd kind of hobby for them. They're just basement keyboard warriors. And that's fine. Like, we don't really do this for them anyway. It's weird that they, have a passion for something like that. But I mean, if you're reading what we're writing, thanks anyway. Speaking of spreading rumors, let's talk about the top 150 player rankings. I don't know what that has to do with rumors, but it was the only transition I could think of. So how often do we update the top 150 player rankings? Right now, we currently update them twice a year, once after club season and once after high school season. Why only twice a year as opposed to some of our competition that does it more often? We just want to see the overall development in the player. We don't want to try and speculate after a short amount of time. I think there's a lot more concrete, tangible measurements that you could evaluate at the end of a season rather than a few weeks in or a month in or 2 months in. Changes that happen during the high school season may not be as significant as the body of work that that player puts together by the end of the high school season. So that's kind of our time frame for that right now. I'm comfortable with twice a year. You know, we've been asked if we would consider doing it more often, but you know, why change it? You know, I think you get a full scope of a player's development over an entire season, whether it's club or high school. And I think that is a significant amount of time and a significant amount of play where we can make a true distinction, whether they move up, whether they move down, whether they go into the rankings, whether they come out of the rankings. But that's part of the process is we need that time to truly evaluate kids and you know, make sure that when we change their spot in the rankings, or if we add them or if we remove them, we're doing it with thoroughness. We're doing it measuring, you know, the tangibles and the intangibles. You know, we're not going to just take a snapshot at saying this kid's a top 150 kid. This kid's not a top 150 kid. You know, there's a lot of time and there's a lot of effort and a lot of measurement and a lot of argument that goes into what we do. So we appreciate taking our time, and we really appreciate the amount of effort that goes into it. We try to make it as objective as possible, which is never going to be 100%. Because there always has to be some form of subjectivity. But, you know, we also want to see that development. We want to see how they're evaluated by their peers, whether it's All-State, All-American, Gatorade Player of the Year. These are more concrete, more measurable things that we can take into consideration when doing the rankings. And it's something that's not necessarily as arguable because it's not as subjective, and it's also not a decision that we make. As much as I'd love to be like, yeah, we should pick the Gatorade Player of the Year. We don't work for Gatorade, so we don't do that. But we pick our own players of the year. You know, Sam, what do you think it takes to be a top 150 player?
Well, I think having the opportunity to evaluate the talent that is really growing in this country is a blessing, first of all. To be a top 150 player means that you are setting the standard in your area, for your team, your state, from coast to coast. Those are the kinds of things where I think being able to evaluate a player's ability within the context of their team is a bit of I'm trying to think of the best way to say it. The markers for being a top 150 player in the country are, to some degree, I think we kind of take a look at the eye test and say, is this player doing things that other players aren't doing? Do they have the ability to switch into the next gear when they need it? And they've kind of just been or is it something that you just say, okay, they have all the skills, they check all the boxes, they play a really clean game, and do they add that value to their team? So I think the top 150 is probably a bit more of an individualistically based honor, right? So we try to keep the team results out of there as best we can, I would imagine, just for the simple fact that, you know, we're looking at a bit more of an individualized metric. Certainly statistics, certainly team finishes help the cause. But I think that there is something to be said about someone's abilities being on full display in an individualistic manner that I would probably be the most important things for that award, personally.
Oh, I agree. I think that, you know, we value and emphasize different skills when it comes to the top 150. Like, if you look at the way it's structured, it's not like we do 30 of this position and 30 of this position and 30 of this position. We look at different skills. We try to take a look at the characteristics of the players individually. What is the quality of the team surrounding that player? Are they truly an outstanding player on their own, or are they surrounded by players that make them better? That's always one of the hardest things to evaluate when you're watching a player, and oftentimes it can be the setter position. Like, are they really a top 150 kid, or do they have a very good defender that's getting them the ball? Do they have extremely efficient hitters that are creating kills to put on the stat sheet for that setter? I I think the quality of the opponent that they play on a state level, on a national level, is extremely important to evaluate, because there's kids that will go their entire high school career, they'll be all state, their high school team will go undefeated, they'll be a 4-time state champion, but are they a top 150 kid? Maybe, maybe not. So there's a lot of different things that we measure, that we evaluate, that we have to take into consideration when it comes to the top 150, which is what makes it so difficult, which is part of the reason why it only comes out twice a year.
And a lot of things change too from season to season. We've seen a lot of individuals take their talents to different competition styles, go to explore beach opportunities, sand opportunities that we kind of, I think for the most part, try. If there are considerable contributions to the indoor game, I think that the beach involvement, sand involvement, however you want to say it, can certainly help the case. Multidisciplined athletes, have shown themselves to be extremely effective in the game throughout history. So there's certainly nothing to suggest that they wouldn't be, involved in the mix. However, there is a difference if you've chosen to do that exclusively. So, and that's, again, we're just nitpicking through these things. And some of it isn't the most fun to do, to be honest with you.
No, not at all.
I think there is something that if you're trying, and I don't know, this may be a little bit personal, bit of an overshare, but there is something that kind of tugs at you a little bit. Now, I don't know if it's emotionally or if it's moral ethic. I don't know how you want to describe it, but it does make the process difficult. And, trying to put together something that is both comprehensive and objectively reasonable to whatever degree the evaluation process is, I think it is difficult and it is a challenge, but it is one that, we can see people appreciate the time and effort for. All of our readers, the volleyball community, is it always received as positively? Potentially not. Depends on the conversation that's being had, but that's not for the conversations afterwards aren't really for us to dictate. The ranks come out and the conversation exists. So the conversation was going to exist regardless, because that's what we do. We love to talk about people. We love to talk about things. We love to talk about ideas. So it's just contextual.
Oh, absolutely. And I think a big goal of our rankings, our awards, everything we do is to create that conversation. I think, everyone's going to have differing opinions of what player is better than another, or what team is better than another. But the fact that we are all now talking about it means we have achieved one of our goals, which is to, spread a light on the game, help grow that game, help create more popularity in the game, and celebrate those players that are killing it in the game.
Yep. And the players that maybe didn't make that 150 list, but are having their names mentioned and conversated about within the context of the conversation, they're still being promoted. There's opportunities for them to move up into those. It's a hard thing. There's, over 500,000 kids playing this game at the youth level. And that's a wonderful thing. We love to see it. Doesn't make trying to pick 150 out of that 500,000 that much easier, though. So
no, it's a tiny fraction, and it's extremely difficult to extract that fraction from that 500,000 kids. But it's something that we've been tasked with doing. We're proud about doing, but we do take it to heart. Like this new ranking that just came out this week, the top 150s for 2026. There's, I think, 26 new players, which is awesome. It's exciting. It's a celebration of their ability, their development, but that also means that 26 kids had to come out of the ranking, which is never the fun part.
No, and I would like to say that's another piece of it, that this is not a removing people, including people. It's not a joyful experience. The joy comes from being able to share opinions, share the experience, share the viewing that we've been able to take in, and share that with the community at large. Because if there's 500,000 kids playing, there's way more than that are digesting the information that's coming in. And as much as I'd like to say that there's an objective, right, correct, it's sports. There never is. So we can look at the professional ranks, and we see how many different outlets are putting out different rankings, lists, spins on these things, and it's not. It's no different. It's no different. Our community is just very tight knit, and so the conversations happen, I think, a little closer in proximity and a little louder. And so
Oh,
we hear
absolutely.
it, and the access to what we have and the people that are doing, or producing the content, a little more direct. So it's okay. It's what it is. So we roll on. We keep doing our thing, and we appreciate the support that we do receive.
Oh yeah, when I get a thank you from a parent or a kid, it feels fantastic. In fact, I think it was like a year or two ago, my wife was in Ohio for a work event, and they had I think Ohio is where they had 18s nationals, and she's in
Columbus,
an
yeah.
elevator in a hotel, and the girl, she's in the elevator with the mom and her daughter. Her daughter's in all her volleyball gear. And I goes, "Oh, do you play volleyball? Are you at nationals?" And they said, "Yeah." And she goes, "Oh, my husband works for PrepVolleyball." And they're like, "Oh, he was a big reason why we got so much attention from coaches. She's got a scholarship now. Like, she's going to be playing at the next level." Like, and they were just so grateful. And I love that. I'm not the type of person that likes to talk about what we do for work. I don't, but the fact that our work actually helps someone succeed in what their goals were is very fulfilling for me.
That kind of story right there makes all of the negativity that surrounds the space worth it for me. Being walking through a convention center and go up to a court to watch, and parents says, "Oh, hey, I saw what you wrote. Thank you. That was really nice." Or right after the 16U national championship game, waiting to take a picture of SCVC 16 Roxy. One of the parents who I did not remember meeting from the year before, "Hey, really appreciate you being here. This team worked really hard. You guys, da 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 da. Thank you." Like those little things. I don't know if people really know how far those go for us.
No, I mean,
It's yeah,
that's about as much recognition and appreciation that we even ask for. We don't ask for thank yous. We don't ask for the stories of how our work has helped someone move on to the next level.
no.
We just want the bribery money.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. That's right. That's right. Prices are going up, y'all. Inflation's a
Yeah,
real
inflation.
problem.
So the
Inflation's
price has
problematic.
just gone up on our awards. The next available bribes will be for the Club All Americans, which is what the next thing is
Oh,
we're
it's
going to
too
talk
late.
about.
No. Submissions closed for that last week. I thought I put out an email about it. I must have
Ooh,
forgotten. No, it'll be for high school stuff's got to be coming up. Although I think we may be running a discount on the high school bribes.
yes. We haven't gotten the promo code for our bribes yet. It'll probably be bribe 24 for 25% off your bribe.
That's a bargain. That's a
No, we're
bargain.
just kidding. We don't take bribes. My new
Are
course
we?
comes next week. But let's get into the Club Americans, because
Club All
that's one of
Americans.
the new exciting things that's happening right now.
It is. It is. So we've been running the Club All Americans, the 17s. The 17U division was awesome. We did break it down by age group this year as kind of a different way to mix in the recognition. We have the graduating class rankings, which is great. So there's a little bit of crossover with those. But basically, it's a great, I think this is a good award to cycle off of the top 150, because the top 150 is such an individualized, piece of recognition. And the Club All American status, I think, is one where we do get a chance to blend things together a little bit. We bring in not only the individual, but we get to kind of break down their impact to their team, how impactful they were to their unit's successes. And then also, we get to evaluate kind of the body of work throughout the season. And I think and I enjoy that, because there's something about being able to look at someone and say, "Hey, look at that. Not only did your team succeed and achieve, but you were a huge catalyst to that." And so I do find that the All-American status is a great one to have in there, and I'm glad that we have it in our mix. So we've been running 20 per team, team 1, 2, 3, very similar to how you would see it from other groups. And then we do have an expanded honorable mention list where we mix in some athletes that have hopped on our top 150 radar, maybe that had a really good club campaign and the team just couldn't get it over the hump, but they were a really notable standout. So we've got the first 2 teams from the 16U group that are out. Team 2 drop, or second team dropped today. First team was on Monday. So we have our first and second team Club All-Americans for the 16Us that came out earlier this week. Third team should be out as well, and we have our honorable mentions that are going to come out and take us into the weekend, and then we'll have another follow-up next week with the 15U ranks. So the award's great. We found that separating the club and the high school All-Americans was a really nice way to move things around and get more people involved and be able to recognize some of those athletes that put together great high school seasons and maybe just didn't have the same type of platform for the club season. So it's been terrific so far. We've had really nice input from a lot of folks, and by input I do mean nominations. So thank you for that. But the selection process, and I'll circle back to this as often as I can, but these athletes are the ones that make the decisions. Not because they're emailing us, not because they're reaching out or, jumping us at events and trying to get in our ear. The way they play, the results they achieve, that's really it. Like, we're not sitting here trying to say, oh, this group, that group. It doesn't do anybody any good. So we're more than happy to recognize and honor as many athletes as we can, that are making the biggest difference and the biggest impact in the game. And I think we're seeing that. So Club All-Americans has been great, and we're going to keep it rolling for the next couple days.
Yes, sir. So let's get into something that I know you're excited about talking about, because we actually had a very in-depth conversation about this. The top 100 club teams.
Rick. Let's get after it.
First of all, let's kind of break it down. How are they decided? What do we measure? What do we value? We look at everything. There are so many factors that go into the top 100 list. It's not just wins and losses. Those are obviously important statistics. It's about strength of schedule. It's about personnel. It's about, what qualifiers teams are choosing to go to, what tournaments teams are choosing to go to, how many qualifiers they're playing in one season. And because there's teams that will play almost every other weekend if there's a possible qualifier. And there's teams that'll maybe go to 1 or 2, bank on qualifying at that event, and then that's it, straight to nationals. There's a lot of strategy that goes into creating a schedule for a team to qualify for nationals. It's that if that's even your goal with the season, which most likely it's going to be if you're playing at the open level, which is what we talk about the most. But the top 100 is a little bit different than our monthly top 50 club teams, in the sense that this is a culmination of the entire season's body of work from January to July. It's every tournament, every event, every power league. We look at even the smaller events just to see a little bit more information, whether it's head-to-head wins or how a team is doing in region. I think the hardest part of the entire process is valuing accomplishments, which is extremely difficult. And it's something that we've touched upon. Like, we have to put value in things, unfortunately. Like, it's just not objective enough for us not to try and see something different that separates one team from another. That's why we've talked about the strength of schedule, the qualifiers. It's sometimes when it comes to rankings, it's literally splitting hairs between teams, and there are hard cuts and there's difficult decisions. So, for instance, our 17's top 100, which has been a point of contention for a lot of people, and I will come out and say I had the final decision. So putting Houston Skyline above Arizona Storm was my decision. It's one that I live with and I stand behind, and I'll die on this hill. But I will say there are 2 very different ways that you could have looked at these 2 teams. One had an extremely successful season, very minimal losses, and won the national championship with an extremely strong roster. The other chose to play what I would consider harder qualifiers, more qualifiers, and just based on the region that they play in, they're seeing tougher competition on a more consistent basis. But that's where the subjectivity comes in. It really could have gone either way. I thought in this instance, winning wasn't necessarily the most impactful factor. I think it was the narrative over the numbers. But you disagree with me, so I want to hear what you have to say about it.
My disagreement comes in to the fact that I think winning is the most important thing. And now, which I will concede to your point, Houston Skyline, 17 Royal, may have won more games. Now, I'm going to say this as gently as I can. They didn't win the most important game. Right. They didn't win the game. And so, and again, I love watching both of those teams play because they play with similar styles. They both have outrageously talented offenses, solid setting cores, and they both have game-breaking attacking ability, solid defenders on the back line as well. So I don't think there's any way to sit here and say that both of them were not eligible for that title. Right. The narrative for Arizona Storm, I think, is that they reached their third consecutive national championship game, repeated as national champions, and their level of performance for a longer period of time over the past 3 competition cycles has been truly elite. Their fall off hasn't been there. I think the only match that I saw where they didn't play to their identity was probably their 15U gold medal match when they got swept. I think it was a sweep by Alamo 15 Premier 2 seasons ago. Somebody check me on that. I think it was 2 sets because I was so surprised. Anyway, that being said, and we've had this conversation about the scope of what the ranking is and it being limited to this season. I think there's something to be said about not punishing a team for playing the schedule that was presented to them. The players didn't have anything to do with what qualifiers they did or didn't go to. Just like Houston Skyline, some of them might have not wanted to play all of those qualifiers.
I can promise you, if I was on that team, I would not want to play in that many qualifiers every week.
But to both teams' credit, they took the schedule that was in front of them and they dominated it. There's no other way to say it. So I think the reason, and again, back to the point that you made about, and we've been talking about the top 150, top 100 club teams, whatever it is, we're splitting hairs. Both teams have exceptional all nation talent. They're playing on United States volleyball U21, U19 teams. They're playing on the biggest stages that this country has. Some of them are committed to the top 5 universities in the country. So it's not like, we're trying to separate out something that, has an easy fix to it. It's not that at all. So
it depends on who you ask, because there's a lot of folks out there that think just because you win the national championship means you should be the #1 team. All stop.
Well, and I hate using your point of reference against my own argument here, but the national championship match was about as close as you could get. I will say that the third set was an absolute war. So and again, I think if we have to go into the minutia of breaking down individual sets, that may undermine what the process is all about and how we're looking at body of work and how we're looking at this whole thing. So, I have a soft spot for Arizona Storm. Personally, this nucleus has been on my radar since they were a 15s group, and leading into that club cycle, you knew they were going to be special. You knew they were. And Terea Siegler was our 2021 high school player of the year when she was playing at Phoenix Country Day, small little private school there in Arizona. And you just knew that that kid was going to be special. And, you
And
know,
she is.
you didn't.
I mean,
Yeah,
that came to almost full fruition already, as she is the new #1 player in the country for that
that
class.
and that being said, and I say that only because they are number 2 on the ranking. But I mean, but Houston Skyline season, their roster, their kid, like they're so loaded, it's actually kind of gross. It's they have so much talent. Cassidy O'Brien runs that offense to an absolute T, and it's one of those things where you're like, man, how many offensive weapons do you really need? Bailey Minor, Taylor Porter, um, you know, and, and I'll mention what's her name, Bailey Warren. Awesome offensive threats. Mackenzie Collins, Bailey. I think I mentioned Bailey Minor, and their middles are
Mhm.
so dominant. But Ella Lewis is an outside attacker on that team who kind of gets shuffled under the rug, as it were, and she's so good. That whole team is gross, and I think, and same thing for Arizona Storm. So here we are having a conversation about it. So I would imagine some other folks are too.
Oh, I know they are, because they dragged us into the conversation. But I think the most important thing when it comes to this, like, again, doing rankings is always difficult. We're never happy with it in the end, because it's just someone is not going to be happy with it, which means we're not going to be happy with it. But we can't make everybody happy all the time. What I do think is there's no argument to be said that these are not the top 2 teams in the country for that age group. I think Houston Skyline and Arizona Storm, like, if we didn't have to pick a #1, I'd be happy putting them both at #1. And I just think that, I don't know, I just, something about the story, and when you really break down the numbers, like I went into this whole like little spiral of breaking down the ranked teams that they played, the number of ranked teams that both teams played, the average rank of the teams that they played, and Houston Skyline had the edge when it came to the rankings. But like you said, like, they don't choose their schedule. They just show up and they play. So like,
They show up and
don't
they
know who's
win.
gonna,
They show up and they
yes,
win.
that is true. They do win. But like, it's such an odd thing to have to measure,
Yeah.
because they have no say in who they play. The club schedules them for whatever qualifiers they're going to go to. They don't know who's going to be at those qualifiers. I mean,
No.
you can say that there are some qualifiers that are going to have stronger competition just based on what region they're going to be out of, but you really never know. Like, years ago, the Northeast qualifier was not necessarily one of the stronger qualifiers in USAV, and at some point that changed, where teams from all the way out west wanted to come to Philadelphia to play for that bid, and it went from, for lack of a better term, an easy bid for a higher level team that's not from the Northeast, to a difficult competition no matter where you're from, to the point where
Sure.
the open division for the 7 teams maybe had 1-2 teams from Pennsylvania, and that's where it was being hosted, in the Keystone region.
Yep.
So like, in that sense, I feel like qualifiers have become much more challenging. It used to be a very regional thing, which I think is also a really cool concept that we kind of still have with regional bids, but now qualifiers have just become miniature nationals. You're fighting against the best teams in the country to get a bid to fight against the best teams in the country.
Which, I think does circle back to conversations that we've had in the past about, what is the national championship?
Yes, which is what we talked about last week, was how many do we need? What does it really mean? Like, I mean, obviously, what we said last week was that right now USAV is basically the national championship, but that may not be the case in the years to come.
The environment and the landscape of this game is changing on a day-by-day basis, it seems like. So we're just hanging on for dear life here. We're along for the ride.
We are. And I mean, nobody's asking us for our opinion, because if they were, I wouldn't even know what to say to them. I would love to see a unifying national championship, a collaboration of all all separate identities, whether it's AAU, USAV, Triple Crown, JVA. Give me one kumite of all the best teams, and then the winner takes all. That would be my ultimate dream in terms of what a national championship should look like.
Single elimination, one huge bracket.
2 teams enter, 1 team leaves.
128 teams. Just do a big double 64 side bracket.
It'd be amazing. It'd be
Winner
fast.
go home.
That's
It would be terrible. It would be terrible.
It would be.
It would be terrible.
I would tell you, we would not be able to cover that event. We would miss every game.
No. Please don't do that. Whoever's listening, it's a bad idea. Don't do it.
It's a cool concept, bad idea in practice.
Well, especially for, for teams just spent 6 months of the calendar competing to qualify. And to be like, oh, fly everybody out, come watch. It's like, oh, well, we just lost, so we go home now. It's a bad idea.
Yeah. That's what it used to be. It used to be like that, like it's single elimination, no matter where you came from, how long you traveled for, you play and you win and you move on, and you lose and you go home. It's a crazy concept that just doesn't happen anymore, except for, the championship bracket. But got to get your games in.
Who's getting the gain out of that?
I don't know. We can't get into that. We don't have our tinfoil hats on for that.
Well, we have hats on. I think as we kind of circle the close of this topic here, with awards and rankings and things like that, I think one of the things that we've said before, we've definitely mentioned today, is that the promotion of the game, the promotion of the athletes, that's what this is about. There's no other way around it. We love this game. It's given us so many opportunities to grow as people, to network with like-minded individuals, and to give back to the community that gave us, so much in our lives. So maybe just keep that tucked away in the back of your mind the next time you're fired up that Prep Volleyball didn't rank your team or your kid or whatever. We care about you guys. We just don't get to say that to everybody. So
yeah, I mean, we don't get to rank every team. We don't get to rank every player. There's only so much that we, as a staff, like, I don't really know if people know what our staff even looks like in terms of numbers. Like, it's really just me and you on a full-time basis. And we have our team of freelance folks that we love and we appreciate, that go out there and put boots on the ground for us. But we don't have these imaginary resources that people think we do. Like, this is a look behind the curtain. Like, people used to ask how many people we had on staff. Like we had dozens of people working for us. It's just us. Like, we do all the legwork. We do all the numbers. We do it all. This right here is Prep Volleyball. So when people get upset and they go, I can't believe you didn't put my daughter this high in the rankings, or I can't believe you didn't put my team this high in the rankings. Like, there's only 2 of us. We can only do so much.
I also I don't get too upset about that stuff anyway, because most people confuse us with other publications all the time.
So moving on, we've got one more ranking to talk about, which is the recruiting class rankings. This is actually one of my favorite rankings to do because it's much more simple, in my opinion, than having to subjectively pick players and qualify and quantify them. For me, the recruiting class rankings, the pillar of the recruiting class rankings is based on the top 150, but we don't have to do it until the top 150 is out, which is awesome. Because at that point, it's really just structuring. It's almost like a fantasy football draft, where like you break down which teams ended up with which players from the top 150, and it's just very cool to look at. Like, this is the future of those programs, and like, yeah, sure, we rank them, and it's still a ranking, but it's just a very cool, unique, and interesting conversation piece that we kind of curate. Those get updated on a monthly basis after the new top 150 comes out. But also when sometimes we'll update it when there's a big bump in commitments, which we know is going to be coming up. We already had one big bump when the 2026s were allowed to start committing. We'll have another one with signing day in the fall. It's exciting, and it's much more fun, in my opinion, than having to split hairs between which player should be number 67 and which one should be 66, or which team should be number 48 and which team should be number 47. Like this to me it's unique. It's just so cool to look at on paper. And the 2026s are going to be coming out, I think, next week, which is going to be really exciting. We're going to update our commitments. And speaking of updating your commitments, I'm going to hand it over to you, Sam. What can people do to update their commitment status on the website?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the easiest way for players to be able to kind of control their content on our platform and give people access to what they want them to see is claim your player profile. It's free for all athletes. You go in. A lot of times we already have one set up for one reason or another, if it's rankings or anything like that. So the bare bones may already be there. All you have to do is claim that profile, and then you have access to it, and you're able to curate all of your information. You can link your video profiles. You can link your social media. You can update your commitment status, which, as we know, in 2024, sometimes can be changing on a day-to-day. And we don't have all the time in the world to go through and be updated on you individually with each move that you make. So that's realistically the easiest way to do it, because then we'll get updated on that on our side, and then it's automatically updated on the site. So if there's new information that we have to get updated, that's the easiest way to do it. And it lets you guys kind of be able to go in and have hands-on on your information. The second way would be to email us, editor@prepvolleyball.com. You can email that your commitment information to us. If you have any changes to your profile that you haven't claimed yet, that you have questions on, that someone saw, again, the easiest way for everyone to know what your accurate, up-to-date information is to just go in there, pop that in there. And then we also have opportunities to be able to connect with our college coaches that are in our network as well, and for them to connect with you. So it's a great opportunity to be able to make sure that we have all of the information that you'd like everyone to see. Additionally, claiming those profiles, any mentions in our content series, our updates, all of that stuff will be linked to your profile. So where you mentioned it, USAV Nationals, that article is going to be on your profile for people to click on, go in and see where you were mentioned, along with all of the other folks that were mentioned in that article. So as our new site rollout has kind of been taking shape, we've been seeing a lot more people jump into that, as well as the ability for a lot more cross connections between clubs, teammates, and future college teammates come up as well. So it's a great opportunity. But as far as the commitments go, because that's definitely one thing that we've noticed is still kind of lagging along a little bit. Those are the two ways to best get us that updated information. Claim your player profile first and foremost. That's going to give you the most access and control over your information. And then B, if it's just a commitment update that you're looking for to be on the commitment list, email editor@prepvolleyball.com.
And the best part is it's free. It costs you nothing.
Free
to create a free player profile. Every time we mention you in an article, it goes onto your profile, so you can see if you made an all-tournament team, if you're in the top 150, if you're in the regional player rankings. You could update your social media, your commitment status. If you switch schools, if you switch clubs, you have control over all that stuff. And that way, colleges can see your profile and they'll know that the information is up to date. Because we have, I think, over 2,400 profiles on our website. I think it was the general number the last time I looked. We can't go in and update every single one, but you can individually update yours, and it makes it way easier for us and you.
Yep. And then we have the information and we're able to use it accurately. And that, I think, is at the end of the day, one thing that we're really trying to make sure that we have is the most up-to-date information. The last thing we want to do is put out a ranking or a list and you just committed and we don't have that information on there. As much as we'd like to be able to, be human Google machines, we're just not. So again, this is a community effort at the end of the day. And as much as we'd love to be able to do everything, we just can't. So If you give us a little bit, we can do a lot with it. And I think that's the message.
Help us help you.
We want to promote this thing. So if you give us more information, we have more to promote. We have more about your team to promote. We have more about your individuals to promote.
Yeah, and you don't even have to bribe us.
You can if you want, but we'll probably say,
well, I don't know about that.
you can try.
You could definitely please try to bribe us. We have no money.
Never
All right,
hurts to
last
try.
thing.
Yeah, last thing.
If we can jump on it, is the U19, U21 national teams.
Wowzers, Batman. They were pretty darn good in Norseca play, weren't they?
They were.
They really were. We saw so many names that we've had a chance to cover this season make really, really impactful contributions to these teams. The U19 team, their gold was over Canada. So we get a little continental bragging rights there over our neighbors to the north. Was your wife okay with that being
Half Canadian?
Yeah, she all right with that?
In this scenario, I think ignorance is bliss because she didn't even know they were playing.
Super fair. But I took a look at some of the stats of the gold medal game, and I think they were pretty indicative of what the rest of the tournament looked like. But for the U19s, for our 16U most outstanding or 16 Open most outstanding player at nationals, Audrey Flanagan from SCVC 16 Roxy, 18 points in the final in 4 sets. Not bad.
I mean, well, hold on. Now, that's not bad. But then you take into consideration she just finished USAV Nationals.
Yep.
And then went straight into that.
Yep.
That is incredible.
Yep. And there were more just like that. Henley Anderson, who is playing up on the on Austin Skyline's squad, 14 points in the final. Sick. Mania Ogabichi, 16 from Sports Academy out in California. They're coming along. That program's getting there. We've seen them come up with a couple teams the last few years, which I would imagine, she's been a pretty impactful contributor to. 16 points in the final. Elena Hecky from Minnesota Select, if I'm not mistaken, 11 points. So, we're seeing the translation that, these kids are really good continentally on our, in our junior system. And then they go and play teams from other countries, and they're still doing really well. I think it was a 4-setter. I think Canada got the second set in a close one, if I'm not mistaken. And then Norseca did not have the U21 numbers.
They didn't have the stats up yet.
They did not have the stats. I was a little surprised about that. However, names we know just from the, from the 17 Open National Championships. Campbell Flynn dishing the rock for that group. Abigail Mullen is on that team, hammering balls away. Logan Parks, Torreya Siegler, Abby Vanderwall, and a player that we've seen now for a while, kind of bouncing around from different age groups and has been playing up for years, Taylor Harvey. Boy, oh boy, really hard to run out of superlatives when you're talking about that kid. Played 18s all year and then dropped to 17s for Club V, and she pushed them into a really competitive place in the 17 Open National Championship tournament. So, that our Team USA is just unbelievably stacked, because those are just the kids that are playing juniors, and
Right.
Then both of those teams still have college athletes that we've seen for a long time playing. I know, or that were, on 18s teams and they're getting ready to go, and their season's been over for a little while. Volleyball is winning. V
Dubs.
So,
all right. Coming up,
that
more award season releases, regional player rankings, star ratings, which I keep talking about. I'm dragging my feet right now. And we will be looking back at the Olympic roster when they were prep volleyball players.
Wowzers, Batman.
Yeah, and then we'll blink and it'll be high school season and we'll do it all over again.
Can't wait. Can't wait. Looking forward to getting back on the road. Sort of. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm having fun with the pod right now. I want to stick with the pod.
Pod's enjoyable. I really do enjoy it. And shout out to Maurice, who's been editing for us. Absolute super stud.
Oh, he's got a big job on his hands with this one.
Yeah, buddy.
Guys, thank you so much for watching and listening. The pod around the block will be back next week.
Peace,
Send in
love.
your bribes.
Peace, love.
Bribes.
Be kind to people.
Give us the bribes.